Get going just a second. All right. Hey, Renter Retires. Thank you so much for joining us again for this episode. We are pleased to bring Jack onto the show. Jack has been working with Renter Retirement for a while. He's been in real estate for decades. He works up in the Cleveland area doing a whole lot of real estate things. But today we want to focus especially on Section 8, which we will get into in just a second. But first off, Jack, welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about your real estate journey so far in your life.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. My pleasure to be here. Decades makes it sound kind of long. We'll just say seasoned would be more, apropos for me. But in that, as I was telling you earlier, I've pretty much made every bad decision you can make in real estate. Kind of learned along the way the different nuances of how to kind of work your way through it. Have really dialed in on Section 8. I've been a very big advocate of the program for many, many years. It is a consistent pay. It is a pay that is always there. It's direct deposit. Most tenants, have to adhere to certain guidelines. So it really takes a lot of want and worry out of the rental process. So again, to me, it's all about trade-offs of I'll take consistency over highs and lows. So, like I said, been doing that, do the remodeling side of it, some new construction as well. But again, that's a quick little shot in of where I've been.
Yeah, so let's let's talk about the Section 8. Now, most people have heard of it at least, at a minimum. They know that it's the government paying all or part of a tenant's rent. But tell us kind of what do these people who are in the program having to show the government, and how are they getting into the program?
Basically, like for here in Akron or Cleveland, there's a website you go to. It's the Section 8 website. You can put your home up there. Tenants will look at it. They'll request a showing. You can have it pre-inspected or inspected when a tenant, has agreed. The voucher itself spells out specifically what will be paid, what won't be paid, and to the dollar as to, what they will guarantee. They have a chart they go by, a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and 4 bedroom that, pretty much go up 4 or 5% every couple of years, depending on. Currently in Akron, they have released, there are 2,000 people that are currently waiting for a home that have vouchers that can't get on them. They just released another 700 emergency vouchers for folks to try to get into a home. For the first time that I've ever seen it, Section 8 is willing to, you know, help as much as they can to get these good folks into a home. Those homes have to be lead free. There can be no lead anywhere, no peeling paint. They must have working sinks, furnaces, stuff like that. Anything that any uh, home renter would want to have, Section 8 requires. It's nothing complicated in that. I mean, if you're going to rent to someone that's going to guarantee your property, then you want to have everything working anyways.
Yeah.
So it's, it's almost simple to the point of, it's like, well, why doesn't everybody do it? And I think the biggest reason is all the myths that stand behind Section 8, that these folks somehow are not as clean, or they don't take care of, or stuff like that. And, if I might just give you some history about Section 8 and the statistics provided by Section 8, that pretty much stand to what this program's about. Um, the average tenant stays about 6.6 years. Section 8 was formed in the late 70s, I believe. It started in the 30s, but then kind of transformed over. But it's a way for people that are struggling to try to be have affordable, decent, nice housing. Most municipalities accept some Section 8 of some form or fashion, and again, it all is direct. In Section 8, again, 6.6 years the average tenant stays. It's been around for late 70s. It's a wonderful program. It's a program that I think most folks have discovered, especially in this unfortunate age of the COVID, where that rent is always there. And that's a good thing. Again, none of us could have predicted the things that happened, but still in that, these are investments that people are making. These are long-term investments. And to me, I've always just kind of thought of it in the sense that a bird in the hand, so to speak, with that. And the tenants are wonderful people. They're very attentive. If they, for whatever reason, violate their Section 8 and get kicked off, they actually have to go back all the way to the beginning. They're a 1 year wait to get back on a average of 2 to 3 year waiting list period. So they have every incentive to take care of the property, and they
Yeah.
do. From my discoveries of it, I truly have never had a real issue with anything regarding Section 8. It's always been very amicable. The people at Section 8 themselves are wonderful. They're great to work with. They're very attentive. Their goal is to make sure that their clients, which are the Section 8 folks, have a proper home to live in. And unfortunately, it's a very frustrating job because there's just not enough homes for these folks as there should be. And it's our goal to provide them as much as possible. And I think through the good folks that you have with Rent to Retirement there, we can really provide housing, guaranteed income, steady rent, no issues, with a quality product, whether it's Cleveland or, Kathmandu. It's everywhere in the United States. So
Yeah.
just a good program to get on to.
Let's talk a little bit about getting your house on the into the Section 8 program. Whenever you talk about the inspection that has to be done, what are they looking for? You mentioned no lead paint, you mentioned having the appliances, but whenever they continue to do their other inspections, kind of what are they looking for to ensure that you are? Because I purchased a property. I have 2 of my 8 properties are Section 8, one in Little Rock, one in Jackson, Mississippi. They came to my Little Rock one and they said, oh, your toilet tank is a little bit loose, so you need to tighten this up. You need to do this other little repair, and then you're good to go. And it was a pretty simple thing. But what exactly, kind of what criteria do they have when they come in to inspect your home initially? And I believe they do kind of every year or every few years they come in and inspect the house again, correct?
Yes, sir. They do annual inspections yearly.
It's been backed up a little bit because of COVID, but
oh yeah, backed up a lot of bit. So they're definitely behind. But when they come in the first time, they'll do initial walkthroughs. If the windows aren't new, they'll test them for lead-based paint. They have a kit they can swab and immediately tell if there's lead. If there's lead, we have a saying: if it's lead, it's dead. They you have to fix that. They'll make sure the house is clean. There's no mold of any kind. That all the the toilets work, the sink work. There's no leaks, stuff like that. Just again, it's not quite to the level of a home inspection, but just more of a general walkthrough inspection to make sure they'll flush the toilets, to make sure they work, doors lock, things of that. Then once you're in there and you're with them again, then they just have general walkthroughs that are, just again to make sure that there's nothing there that's out of line. Tenants as well, if they have an issue that cannot be addressed, then they have rights where they can file a complaint with Section 8, and you have to answer to that. Same thing, vice versa. If you feel that the tenants aren't representing the home in a fashion that you deem correct, then again you can use Section 8. They're just a wonderful thing to filter through with the clients, both the tenants as well as the people that are owning the home, and they're very attentive to both sides' needs.
Yeah, I was actually amazed. I took my property in Jackson and started self-managing it, and I'm used to dealing with the government. It's a nightmare, but the Section 8 people, they actually answered the phone when I called. They respond to emails within a day or so. It was a little bit tricky at first, just finding the right housing authority in the area that I needed to go to, because there were like 6 or 7 or something like that. But the first one I called said, it's not here, you need to call this number and get them. So they were actually way more helpful than I expected a government entity to be. And what you were referring to at the beginning, I love, and it's something that I tell people all the time. And that is, when you look at humanity, at least through my eyes, most people are good people. Most people, when they live in a house, they don't want to live in a dump. They don't want to live in some rundown home. And so you hear about the stories like you were saying about, oh, Section 8 tenants just destroy your house. Well, they don't want to live in a destroyed house. They want to keep
Yeah.
their voucher. So, they're gonna do a good thing for you. Now, you mentioned on the walkthrough, during the walkthroughs, are they also looking at how the tenant is maintaining the house, or is that something that you have to address if you don't like what they're doing?
No, they definitely, they want to make sure that obviously it's a walkthrough for both sides. It's a walkthrough to make sure that we're upholding our standards, and again that the tenant as well is doing, their job as well by again just making sure to protect the investment, in it. Um, I think, you know, I've been very humbled in my life and very fortunate to be on this side of things. I've seen the worst of the worst, so we can say, and I've these folks, some of them have gone through some extremely tough times, and it's very rare in life where you can get kind of a win-win where, you have an investment. That investment is to enrich your life, and at the same time you're doing so much good for other people that don't necessarily have as blessed as we are to be in that particular situation. So, there's no monetary value for a feel good, but feel good still good, so it's just one of those things where it's always funny when I ask other competitors, so to speak, in this area, what do you think about Section 8? I'm like, oh, it's horrible. You never want to rent that, because that's why would I give away my secrets, so to speak. So but they're just again, my experience has always been a one of good things all the way around, and like anything in life, there's been those folks that have made poor decisions, as I have in my life, and they pay the price for that. So again, it's just a situation where the biggest investment in a person's life, in my opinion, is their real estate, and that's usually their primary home. Then for those of us that feel the need for adventure, go out and buy rental properties, and instead of skydiving without a parachute. So and in that too, if you're going to protect that investment, which again is huge, then it has to be, in my opinion, something that I want to make sure I give myself as many pluses that I can do. And to me, Section 8, there is no bigger plus. Can you get more for rent? Probably. But, again, as the last 22 months have taught us, nothing's guaranteed but a very few things. And again, to say, hopefully to gosh, this never happens again. But if it does, again, that's just another box I can check where, if the government shuts down, if people are laid off, if, the worst of the worst happens, we still collect our rent. And that to me is the bottom line of your investment property. How can I secure my investment monthly? And it's not an annually, it's a monthly situation, because if you're buying this and you're financing it, then every month, I do promise you this much, that bank is going to want their money, period, regardless of what's going on. So
Yeah. They're funny like that.
yeah, it's always like, what do you mean you want your money? I'm having some issues right now. And they're like, well, that's not what you signed on page 57.
Exactly. Now, one of
Yeah.
the things I want to discuss, that you were saying that Section 8 has their guidelines, and it goes zip code by zip code about, if you have a 1 bedroom, you can get this. If you have a 2 bedroom, you can get this, 3 bedroom, etc. So when it comes to it, let's say I'm in Cleveland, I've got a 3 bed, 2 bath, and they say I should be able to, I go on their website, I look at their chart, and it says I should be able to charge, let's just say $1,300. Now, is that something that if I have a 3 bedroom home, I will kind of almost definitely get the 1,300, or is that on a sliding scale, or how does that part work?
For the most part, the number that's there, what they will pay is what you'll get. There's different, I also rent to the Summit County Battered Women's Shelter, which is a HUD agency as well. And their voucher pays a little differently. So there's just kind of different nuances depending on, which one you go with. But every client from Section 8 will have a specific detail of what will be paid. Like some of them only pay, let's say the rent's $1,200. They may only pay, Section 8 may cover 1,000, and the tenant has to cover 200. So you'll have differences in those things, but I can tell you this much: no matter what it is, you will have multiple offers to choose from, no matter where you go. But I can tell you specifically here in Northeast Ohio, It's the same everywhere. There is no different. I'll give you folks a little hint on how to find out. Every city has what's called a consolidated plan, and if you type up any city and you type in consolidated plan, it's a 5-year plan that cities present for their funding, and in there it talks about their public housing, and they give specifics as how many people are currently on Section 8, how many people are currently waiting for Section 8, what is the current conditions of Section 8 housing, and it's very depressing, the current issues that a lot of Section 8 housing has, and it just goes to show you the need and how great it is. It's a treasure trove of information because it gives you exact data as to where you want to target your investment. Because if you go into a city, like I said, that has 2 or 3 thousand people waiting, and you have housing, then there's a good chance you're going to get your voucher filled. I can tell you an example. Dallas, Texas, has 25,000 people that are waiting. They don't even have a voucher yet, that are currently waiting to get on that list. So the need is just tremendous, and it's only going to grow, unfortunately, just due to the current situation we're in and how it is. So, I mean, to me, it's like I said, it's one of those situations where I'm all about limiting risk, and again, because prior life chose the other path. So in this situation, this is about limited risk. You know exactly what you're getting. You know exactly when you're going to get it. If there's any issue with the tenant, you will be notified immediately. If there's any issue with your home, you'll be notified immediately. There's no guesswork. I like that. It makes it a lot easier. So.
Yeah. So let's go into tenant selection. I know most people are going to be using property managers who are going to be doing this, but I just want to kind of go over in general when it comes to tenant selection. You said, you put your home on the Section 8 list, you get approved as a landlord, you put your home on there. If you get 3 offers, now let's just say the government's going to be funding 80% of all of these people, how the selection process, is it the same as if they were cash paying tenants where you can pick and choose, or is Section 8 kind of a first come, first serve as long as they can pay their rent?
Yeah, it's the one. I mean, for example, when you post your house up there, they'll come look at it. You'll have a client that'll say, "I'd like the house." You agree to show it to them. They agree to do the voucher. You may have 2 or 3 people if they fall out or change their mind or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of a first come, first serve, situation. They're all going to be the same as far as the dollar amount. Section 8 doesn't negotiate. Section 8 doesn't go higher or lower. It's a set amount, so it's a fixed amount. Again, the only difference may be some may include utilities, some may not include utilities. You'll just have different nuances within the voucher as well as to it. So,
Yeah, that's
but
going
one
to be
thing,
market dependent.
yeah, and one thing to make sure, if your house is a Section 8 rented home and you agree to that number, you need to stick to that number. You don't, sometimes folks will, well, I only have a 2-bedroom house, but I'll give you a couple hundred extra. You don't want to do that. You want to, if you have a 2-bedroom voucher, take your 2-bedroom pay. Do not take anything other than what you agree upon with Section 8, period. It's just not a good thing to do that. So, just a word of caution, so to speak, on that.
Definitely.
uh,
Now let's talk timeline. You mentioned that people stay in Section 8 on average 6.6 years. So obviously you've got 6 years where you're going to be trying to get rent increases, hopefully every year if you can. Obviously, some years you may not. But when it comes to the timeline of asking for a rent increase, this is something I learned recently. You have to have paperwork that you fill out or that your property manager fills out, your tenant fills out, and you have to get it to them. I was told 60 days prior to the lease ending. You have to get them to, I think all they have to do is sign off and say, I understand that you're asking for a rent increase and it may increase the amount that I have to pay as a tenant. Can you talk a little bit about any timelines that are there in the Section 8 process and kind of how they work?
yeah, kind of the same thing here. It's same situation. It's all paperwork driven. Section 8 understands that prices go up, rent goes up as availability becomes limited. They're very conscientious about that. And again, as long as it makes sense, we don't want, well, I want to get 200 more because I want to get, Mrs. Smith or Mr. Smith out of this home. It's one of those, they're there to protect the client first and make sure that, as long as it's a reasonable request, 60 days is about normal, 60 to 90 days. And again, you can pull comps from the area showing where rents are going from, say, 700 to 825, or 700 to 725, 750, something of that nature. If it jumps up dramatically, I'd say anything over $100 or so, chances are that's a big jump in it. But they do allow for those increases. They do understand those happen, and again, as long as it's within guidelines, it's not a problem.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to getting let's say you have a Section 8 tenant who you don't really like, they contact you too much. They complain about stuff that doesn't really need to be fixed, and you're ready for them to move on, and you're ready to find another tenant, whether that's a Section 8 tenant or a cash paying tenant. What is the process like? Do you just notify them we're not going to be renewing your lease? Are you stuck with them? How does that work?
Yeah, it's one of those situations, just like any situation, whether it's Section 8 or just a regular rent, so to speak. Again, that's why you do yearly leases. You have the right to notify anybody 60 days prior to their lease being up that you will not be renewing their lease. You do not have to give a reason at all, nor should you, unless it's, you know, and then that's it. And then you have the right to resubmit or anything else like that. So um, it really is quite rare that a situation like that would happen, because again, especially with Section 8, they don't really contact you. They contact their Section 8 and let them know what's going on if there is an issue. So, but in those situations, everything that you're into for a lease. But I will say, let's just say the worst case scenario happens. The tenant makes some very poor choices and violates the lease. Then again, if that's the case, that's what that contract is there for. And if that's the case, then, well, you can start the eviction process. Here in Akron, the eviction process has begun again, and they are hearing cases and evicting people. So if the tenant violates the lease, you have the right, as in any situation, to protect your asset according to the contract therein, and that's where you go through that process of the eviction.
Okay. Now we've been talking about the good stuff. Let's talk about any potential downsides. What are some of the, if you can give us one or two negatives that you've seen about leasing in the program, or, anything else about your experience with Section 8 that hasn't been kind of as good as properties who you're finding cash paying tenants through?
Yeah, the only thing to me that used to be what I would call a deterrence was the dollar amount. A house that I can get 1,050 for from Section 8, I may be able to get 1,250 or 1,400 from a regular paying tenant. But again, to me, real estate is a numbers game. And if you're doing just one house, then roll the dice. But assume you do 10, 20, or 30 homes over 5 or 10 years or shorter time period, then again, it's that consistent flow of rent that comes in that you have with Section 8 that makes the difference, because, it will be inevitable. People will move. And folks that are paying that kind of money tend to leave. A Section 8 tenant is more, into the community that they're in. I've had mothers, grandmothers, and their children rent, families stay into it. So it's just it's there to help, and it helps both sides. Again, it's hard for me to think of any deterrent other than the fact that you can get more, but at the end of the day, for a few extra $100 every month, you roll the dice, because you just don't know. You just don't know. And again, I can tell you that I don't know if there's thousands of people waiting to guarantee me rent. I know there may be thousands of people waiting to pay us rent, but I'd rather have a few hundred guarantee me rent than 1,000 waiting to pay me rent.
So yeah, let's go into that, because you mentioned, the 6.6 to, so 6 to 7 years with a tenant for people who may not be in the real estate investing yet. I want to say, most cash paying tenants, maybe 3 years on a good run for tenants. Most property managers I talked with, whenever I've been looking for properties, have said, our average stay is 2 to 3 years, somewhere in that range. And best case, I'm going to say best case scenario, when you have a tenant turn, $1,500 to $2,000 for make ready for your property. So just assume that you've got 2 tenant turns that are, $2,000 each. That's $4,000 over your 6 years. If you figure that out, 72 months, that's, $60 to $70 a month right there that you're paying. And that's a best case scenario tenant turn. If you're having to do any other repairs, then you're going to be up in the, maybe $3,000-$4,000 range. And then, your $200 difference, your $150 to $200 difference for your cash pay, that just
Gone.
goes away.
Yeah. And, there's things you can do to the house as well to provide quality product for the Section 8 tenant, as well as more protection for your home. The vinyl plank is wonderful. In every room but the bedrooms, carpet the bedrooms, go with a gray Berber-like carpet that's nice. We firmly believe here in our houses that again, any home that we rent Section 8 or even go through with rent to retirement, we work directly with them to make sure that the houses meet their standards, which again are in line with Section 8. And that way, if the tenant does decide to move out or something of that nature, then the vinyl plank will be good and sturdy. The carpets, if they do need replaced, again, they're not as expensive as if you use carpet throughout and have to try to match, so to speak, and those types of things. So again, a Section 8 tenant knows that it's important to take care of the home as well too, because they could lose their voucher over that, if the home is destroyed in some fashion, so to speak. So they have much more incentive other than saying, "Oh, you got my deposit, to heck with you," So but you're right. And again, let's just say it's $1,000 times 6 years, which is what, 6 times 12 is 96,000. And if you bought the home for 85, well, I mean, you're doing okay. You're doing okay. That means the next 14 years are yours. And again, you've got taxes, insurance, and stuff like that. But, there's just, again, real estate is to me, when you're renting, is a more of a long-term play. And you want to get past that 5th, 6th, or 7th year. Once you're around that corner, and then things get real interesting real quick with your rent. So
let's talk about homes that may not be fit for Section 8. What kind of range of home, where do you hit that line where Section 8 doesn't make as much sense for the property?
that would be, I guess, if you were in areas that would command substantial rent increases, where let's say a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home or 3-bedroom, 1-bath home could get $2,000 a month, but Section 8 will only allow $1,100 or $1,150. Section 8 again makes concessions for certain areas that are higher with rent. My opinion would be they need to decide, what plan of attack they want to take with their real estate. If they want to stay in higher rental areas, obviously their cost is going to be higher to purchase a home. Their rehab cost could be higher. Their interest rate could be higher. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, yes, I could make more money. Yes, I'm living in a better home built not in the 1920s, so to speak, and stuff like that. But, it's a big investment where, if you have 20 homes, average price of 80 grand versus, 10 homes, average price of 150 grand, it just depends on what that each individual client is looking for. To me, I'm the guy to call when you want a Section 8 tenant, when you want a house that'll be, taken care of, sturdy, reliable, and consistent. Um, I don't do well in other neighborhoods. That's just not my world, because again, um, I'm not the guy that you're going to call for any fashion tips, obviously any dietary tips or hair product tips. So I'm just the guy that just goes out there and, these are good houses that are sturdy, that have stood the test of time, that make it work. That higher rent, higher return, all that kind of stuff. It's just for me. I guess as I age, I look for more simplistic things. I'm not looking to, compete with anybody on anything at that level.
Yeah, you mentioned the deposit and the potential for that. Let's go into if I would assume based on the general clientele that Section 8 has, let's say obviously they want to keep their voucher, but let's say they move out of your property, they've caused damage that's $1,000-$2,000 over what their initial deposit was. Is it just kind of an unlikely thing that you're actually going to be able to get that money from them? Do you just kind of write that off at that point, or do you find that you're successful?
I apologize. In that situation, no, you're just, it's a law of averages. It does happen. I'm sure it's very rare that it happens with a Section 8 tenant. Because again, you can say, hey, look, this tenant destroyed my home. I just want you to make a note of it if they're trying to move somewhere else. Yeah, you're pretty much, that's what your security deposit's for on that. And that's just, again, the nature of the program that we're in and what we do.
Yeah.
To sit there and try to collect, you're not going to collect from them to waste time on an attorney or go after it. Again, it's just, that's why I like Section 8 because it just doesn't happen all that often in my experience. I could be completely wrong for somebody else sitting in Toledo or any other city going, this guy's nuts. I mean, I can only tell you about my city and what I do here. I'm with it, but again, there's no upside to them doing that. There really isn't.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jack, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Are there any final comments you want to give anybody as we wrap it up?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Again, it's great to meet you guys. I really enjoy the staff and what you guys do there. Again, I guess in closing, I would just say that, don't believe what you hear about things. Look at, do your research, study, make sure you know exactly what you're getting into when you go into it. And again, go by history. Section 8 has been there. It's not going anywhere. And it's always there. And again, I'm not a paid spokesperson for them. I just know in rental properties, to me, again, it's just all about mitigation of risk. So if I can be any help, please let me know. And it's been my honor to speak with all of you folks.
He's not a paid spokesman, but he's paid by Section 8 monthly.
Not me, but the people I work for, but they do help put gas in the car, shall we say.
All right. Well, once again, Jack, thank you so much for your time. To all our listeners, check us out at renttoretirement.com. That's renttoretirement.com. You can see the inventory we have in the Ohio area. You can see inventory we have all across the country. Also, if you want to get our brochures that you see there on the website sent directly to your phone, go to renttoretirement.com/hotlist, and you can get those sent daily to you as soon as they're available. Once again, Jack, thank you so much for your time. And to all our listeners, please leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. We greatly appreciate it. Let everybody know that this is a podcast that provides value to real estate investors. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.